Because what most people don't realize when they purchase a property, that they're purchasing a property under a conditional interest. And all that merely means, the fact that they're purchasing the property under conditional interest, it just entails that the seller of the property is not being honest with you. They're not telling you that, you know what, you're buying this property, and unfortunately, we already have investors that want to put money into making money on your debt. But that's granted that you actually fail. You understand what I'm saying? So your investors, there's investors that's planning on you failing. There's investors that's planning on you not making due on your promise to pay for the mortgage. And remember, we said mortgage is mort, as in mortuary, meaning death, and gauge. Gauge being what? Gauge being a pledge. So mortgage, especially etymologically, I don't make this up, is literally a promise until you die. It's a promise to pay something until you die. It's a death pledge. That's what a mortgage is. A mortgage is a death pledge. Keep that in mind. And what we all need to think about or consider is the fact that we live in a society where people can sell you something you can't pay for until 30 years. And we never really considered that something weird. But it's extremely weird and it's extremely dishonest. But hey, who cares, right? So long as you finally can call a house your very own. Pardon me. She's allowing me to have breakfast with her while I teach. But part of the agreement is I gotta actually have breakfast with her while I teach. So pardon me. Just be sure to share the video, very important information. So what happens is you have a pledge until you die. And the reason why we talk about that when it comes to real estate is because the lifetime expectancy for most of us is around 71, 72 years old. And most people don't get serious about buying property until they're about 33, 34, 35. It's the average age of people that really buckle down and say, hey, I'm going to buy this house. And so if they get a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, by the time they finish paying for it, presumably, they'll be about 63, 64, 65 years old. They'll be on the cusp of death. And so that's why it's a pledge until you die. That's the name of the game. So it's a mortgage, a pledge until you die. Right? Then they hypothecate the mortgage. And what is a mortgage hypothecation? Hypothecation etymologically means to bury or put beneath or put under. So one means death or a death promise, and the other one means to put you underneath. A promise to put you underneath or below. What is that? To bury you. Bury you in what? Debt. And therefore, once you get buried in debt, they foreclose on the property. Now, what is the foreclosure part? The foreclosure comes in when they shun you or cast you out. And that's what foreclosure means, to cast you out, to shun you, to move you from. Okay? Do you think it's a coincidence? Of course not. It can't be a coincidence. And that's what I have to talk to you all about. It absolutely, positively cannot be a coincidence that all these words that they use to discuss the real estate process or transaction that you conduct happens to deal with death, burial, and casting away like a spirit. Because once they bury you and you still around the house, you now a ghost. We gotta get out of, you gotta get you out of here. What's this ghostly figure doing here? Didn't we kill you with debt already? Now we gotta seal the deal and get an exorcism or somebody to perform the ritual to get you out of here. So keep that in mind. And so this all happens when someone sells you a property under conditional interest, and this is why we have to understand UCC. According to UCC 9-105 in parentheses D, a debtor can only conditionally own property. And if a debtor can only conditionally own property, and you haven't established yourself as a secured party creditor, then what's going to happen is they're going to sell property to you under the pretense that you are a debtor, that you are a very unsophisticated consumer. And ignorance of the law is no excuse. These are terminologies or phraseologies that they have created, not me. And in turn, this means that according to the presumption of law, they can do something or conduct illegal business with you so long as you consent by a lack of a response, which is an admission of guilt or consent. So they sell you these properties that you cannot afford. This is called a subprime. Before they sell you a property, they do the analytics. They understand your mother's credit score and spending history, your father's credit score and spending history, your credit score and spending history, and then they engineer a price that you most likely will not be able to handle within 3 to 5 years of your purchase of the home. Because the mortgage is insured by people that are in prison and people that go to war that die. And this is called an MBS, a mortgage-backed security. So as mortgage-backed securities are being used to create an opportunity for creditors to get paid for debt obligations that people go into default in. So the debt that prisoners pay back to society in the form of them signing a bid bond, payment bond, and performance bond, it gets consolidated to form a MBS or mortgage-backed security, and the Corrections Corporation of America creates a surety, which is a form of insurance, and they pledge the labor of the prisoners to leverage their output or their labor into the debt obligations of people who can't pay for their property. So you see there's a direct correlation between the prison population and foreclosures. They work hand in hand with each other. They work hand in hand with each other. So keep that in mind. All right? And so not only do they already have their money in the bank, they understand that, hey, you know what? If I can get paid quicker if this person goes bankrupt versus if this person actually has the money to pay me 30 years out, which one should I make a business out of? Should I make a business out of waiting 30 years to get my money back in small increments month to month for 30 years? Or should I sell people on mortgages that they most likely cannot afford so I can get my money back in real time? Of course, we know option B is the one they go for. Now we know that. And so not only is this the game plan, but they also create a scenario where people can invest by way of private investment banks, which is what your commercial banks are servicing loans for on their behalf in the form of those mortgages, because your commercial banks don't even have the capital to wait 30 years for a fixed rate mortgage. So the head drug dealer is the private investment bank. And your commercial banks like Wells Fargo, Beaufort, Bank of America, US Bank, and the rest of them, Santander, what they do is say, you know what? We're going to find a bunch of people willing to go into debt obligations, $100,000 mortgage, $200,000 mortgage, $300,000 mortgage, and we're going to combine all these debt obligations, create one bonded promissory note, and we're going to turn this over to the private investment bank, and they're going to give us a percentage of these debts before they even pay, because the private investment bank has the capital. When the commercial banks get capital from getting all these debt obligations from the private investment bank, the entity that they're servicing the loans for on their behalf, this is like they're working on commission. They then go out and get more people to get into debt, and then you repeat the process over and over. Now the private investment bank, what they do, they get investors that invest in your debt obligations, and they sell portions of your debt obligation or your mortgage into investment baskets like hedge funds. And in doing so, the hypothecation process commences. So this is mortgage hypothecation now. Okay, and now people are able to invest in your debt, and they're able to, and they make more money if you go into debt quicker. So this is called the conditional interest. In order for them to do that, there's these DOTs we got to consider, or the deed of trust, and there's robo-signers, which means not human beings haven't really been signing most of those papers that you had to sign for the mortgage. This is the stuff you have to learn for the course. In addition to this information, guess what's going to happen? Well, this is a conditional interest. They sold you the property under a condition, which means they had intention to sell the mortgage note to entities that you know nothing about. And whenever a seller doesn't let you know other people are invested into your investment, particularly one that puts you into debt, that is a condition, and that is against the law. Unless under presumption, you are okay with it. This is the problem. So that's why I brought up the UCC code, UCC 9-105 in parentheses D, which lets you know that a debtor can only conditionally own property. And if a debtor can only conditionally own property, then legally they can do this to you if the presumption is you are a debtor. This is why we talk to you about status. Status means estate. If you look up the word estate etymologically, you're going to see that the word estate means status. So when we're talking about changing status or correcting status, we're talking about correcting the relationship you have with your property, which is why we strongly suggest that you erect a trust to protect your asset. I just got to do it this way because it's a little spontaneous, but I told myself I'm going to teach as much as possible because the information has to go out. As much as free information I can put out as possible, I will. Why? So when I do the courses, I can get to the real thicker things. If I can do enough of these free classes, then when I do these courses, I can get into the stuff that I want to get into without feeling insecure of the fact that nobody knows what I'm talking about. I don't want to be in a space where I'm teaching and it feels like no one has a beginning point for what I'm talking about. But if I could saturate the media with a bunch of these types of engagements or interactions, then I know I'm in a real good space where I could do some work. Okay. So let me say that. All right. So where was we at? So there's a conditional interest on these properties. A condition is totally illegal, and that brings me to my next point. Now, I appreciate you all sharing the video. That means a lot to me. So this brings me to my next point. They are selling the mortgage note without you knowing. So this agreement that you're making, they're soliciting the sale of it. They're selling the mortgage note. And since they're selling the mortgage note, guess what happens? If you were to ask them in a court of law to provide the mortgage note, they wouldn't be able to because they would have sold it already. What does that do? Automatically, that slows down the foreclosure process. In some instances, it actually stops the foreclosure process because they don't have the original note because they sold it without telling you. And there's no agreement that you signed that is legal or legitimate, for that matter, where they can have the right to say we sold it without your knowledge. So that's the number one way you're going to slow down the foreclosure process. It's number one way you're going to put an end to the crap that they do. So, and in other ways, you have what's called an administrative affidavit of specific negative avertment with opportunity to cure and counterclaim in admiralty. And that way, we realize what? We realize that, you know what? We're going to have to file a lawsuit or a countersuit for that matter. We're going to do a counterclaim in admiralty because the rules or the laws that govern America are laws that revolve around water, admiralty. And you're an organic living soul. You're a flesh and blood human being. So guess what? You don't have the time to be over here arguing with robo-signers, not real human beings. Foreclosure premises whereby the mortgage note has been sold already. So what are we in court arguing about? And understand, when we say court means paperwork, and the courtroom is where the paperwork is discussed. Always keep that in mind. Court is the paperwork. The courtroom is where the paperwork gets discussed. Yeah, so the purpose of us having this real estate course, okay, this Sunday, the Sunday after it, and the Sunday after that, we have classes. It's a 3-class installment, and I may do a 4th one free, depending on how efficient and how responsive people are to the information. I'll be able to make a determination if I need to do an additional class for the course. We will be talking about adverse possession, the acquisition of property without you having to purchase it, but you do have to invest in it. We will be talking about foreclosure relief, foreclosure remedy, how to stop foreclosures completely or slow it down for 2-3 years to get you some time to regroup and come up with a strategy. One of your number one strategies is going to be an administrative affidavit, a specific negative avertment with opportunity to cure and counterclaim and admiralty, with compounding interest on how we're going to fight. We're going to break down the structure of the response, so don't worry about it. But it's something that has to take place. It absolutely has to take place. That administrative affidavit is everything to fighting the foreclosure process. We're also going to teach about how to sell properties. We're going to touch on some of the things that we spoke on the previous real estate course. If you didn't get the previous real estate course, it'll really come in handy for the course that we're dealing with now. It's a 4-class installment UCC course that breaks down tax liens and tax deeds to make that money. Of course, we know a tax lien is a past due property delinquent tax, or a past due delinquent property tax that is sold by the county government per the redemption period. We know redemption period is the amount of time allotted to an owner to go delinquent on the property taxes. So New Jersey, as an example, has a 2-year redemption period. They have 2 years before they give someone an opportunity to invest in the debt obligation, which is totally different from the conditional interest that we was talking about. No matter how much people want to condemn, mock, or ridicule me for moving out the neighborhood, it's not like I moved out and stopped talking to people. I moved out, and I'm also talking to you all, asking you to move out. Come join me, become my neighbor. See why we got to think so small? You know, there's one thing about gentrification I always think about. The main issue we have with gentrification is the race that comes into the community. The main problem I have with gentrification is we can't afford for our community to be gentrified and still live there. Because if we could afford the living conditions, it wouldn't be gentrified. Think about it. The part of gentrification that we are not speaking about is the fact that we don't have the asset wealth or the liquid to combat and endeavor to switch the ethnicity into a community. That's the problem. So we can complain, yeah, our community's being gentrified. How long can a destitute community last before it needs to be developed by people who have the investment eye? Now, I'm not telling you I agree with gentrification as far as the strategies that's employed to move people out of neighborhoods so they can make more of a profit. I'm not telling you that. I'm telling you that the elephant in the room is we don't have the resources to withstand such a move. That's what I'm talking to you about. So no one wants to discuss that. Like, we say things like buy black, but if black people say they don't have money, what they gonna buy black with?
Right.
It's weird. I always think about producing black. when you talk producing black, now we may have to send people to school to advance themselves education-wise, to be able to do more for themselves and their people. Now we may also come to terms with the fact that, you know what? We buy black, then what's going to happen? Well, we buy black, we got to learn how to make the money. But if we produce black, then it's all inclusive of buying black. But there is no buying black unless there's a black culture, because culture is the remedy for the economic crisis of any community. When you have culture, the prayer rugs, the oils, and the incense, money goes back to the people who initiate the practice. The wedding ceremonies, the cakes, the suits, the ties, under normal cultural circumstances, the patrons of the culture happen to be part of the same culture immediately. You can tell when black people practice cultures that don't immediately affect them. You can tell when black people are part of cultures that's not part of their culture, because they don't economically receive the benefits that other people receive when they practice their culture. So whether we practice Thanksgiving, whether we practice Christmas, whether we get married, where we conduct funerals, the money's never come back to the community indulging in the practice. And that's how you know it's not your culture. Because when you have control of your culture, you have control of your economy. I say it again, when you have control of your culture, you have control of your economy. It's real simple. So we have to really get a fix on the elephant in the room. And the elephant in the room is not to bash people that moved out the community. Not to say buy black, buy black. You say buy black until you turn blue. But the problem is, we're going to get the money to buy black. You still telling us about shirts with heat transfers, the square on the shirt that we iron on, and we selling that. I mean, a lot of people are selling that. I get it. I'm not knocking it. But how many people are going to sell shirts? And how many people are going to sell shea butter? Like, when are we going to create some technology? When are we going to be able to employ several people of our kind? We're not thinking that far because our teachers are lazy, so they don't commission us to take it to that level. They don't commission us to create an industry. See, I can't deal with a community of people that's going to sell DVDs. Everybody's selling DVDs, but they won't create a commission or an enterprise, legally register and trademark the intellectual property. So whenever it sells, that trademark or that registration suggests to us that, you know what, there's taxes on the product. That would mean every vendor will have to allocate a portion of their revenue into some kind of fund to securitize the position of the leadership and the people. See, with all the DVDs that's selling, if those DVDs were the property of a conscious community that was united, then all these people that sell their DVDs wouldn't mind putting aside $3 to $5 tax into a fund. And that signification, that symbol on the DVD imposes the tax. And because it's registered and trademarked, if it's bootleg, then that would be an infraction on the person that's selling it. Because they would actually be stealing from the community at that point. And all these different vendors with all their YouTube channels who's selling their own little DVDs and got their stands out there, they don't realize they would make more money unified. And then now we won't have people like Dr. Ben inside of nursing homes. Now we won't have situations where great leaders like Dr. Khalid Muhammad and others, families may have to go through some kind of struggle because of a premature absence of that leader, having been murdered, killed, slain, or just dying. Most times because of health implications, if it's not because of revolutionary implication. So we don't have no fund aside for pension or for health care. Nothing to benefit the community at large, nothing to benefit the teacher as an individual. But when the teacher decides, hey, I'm leaving because life goes on, I got a wife and children. Now, he's abandoning his people because I don't want to play games. and you shouldn't play them either. I don't want to play games talking about these tales of the wicked white man. I'm tired. You're going to tell it to me year after year, and I'm going to be in the same neighborhood. I can't do it. Don't you think I'm happier like this? Yeah, you see, you happy around those white people. I'm happy around these trees. It's sun all year round. I don't live where there's garbage bags on the street, where there's bars on the window, where there's rodents moving around, where there's gunshots every day, where there's police sirens and fire trucks. And you want me to keep going? Where there's gangbanging, there's people obviously selling drugs on the corner. You know what the Negroes say? Come on, white people selling drugs. They selling more drugs. They don't want to bring it into the country. I hear all of that. Brother, you know the man on the corner selling drugs in your neighborhood, and your daughter has to walk past him to go to school, and your daughter or your son will more likely wind up on those drugs in some shape, form, or fashion. And your people will push drugs on each other in the community. Hey, you want to try the spliff? Before they push books on each other. Tell me I'm lying. I want to hear no shit that everybody in the hood is pushing books on each other before they push drugs. There's a higher probability of drugs being pushed on your child than a book. Don't lie to yourself. Don't lie to me. Don't have me turn up over here. Please don't. I don't like them lies that they be kicking. They be acting like the hood is an oasis. I didn't quit on the hood. I'm teaching to encourage y'all to get out of it. I don't want to hear none of those lies, man. 'Cause those are lies. They be lying, man. I'm telling you, they be lying. They be lying. They be lying to people. People be nah, you know, I'm staying in the hood. To do what? You ain't creating nothing. You ain't contributing nothing there. So what you staying in the hood for? Staying in the hood to do what? So no, we're not going to do that. I'm not going to sit here and try to make up stories and excuses for you all. I'm telling you, your leaders are failing you every day, and there's no need to mention their names. We should be encouraging you all to make more of an individual success of yourselves. We should be encouraging you all to do better for yourselves. We should be giving you some kind of game plan. We should be talking to you fiscally. Okay? We should really be talking to you on a better level. You should be doing a whole better game plan. There has to be a better arrangement. There has to be a better arrangement. And I'm tired of complaining and combating with people. So you know what I did? I simply just removed myself from those people. And what we'll see is how much I exponentially grow and how much the people around me grow. Yesterday, I had Nathaniel Dilworth live with us. And what y'all don't know, he's a humble guy, so I don't want to tell you his net worth. But I'm going to just tell you, he's doing extremely good. I've been through this already. Come on. And if that man's humble, I'm not going to take him out of the humble spot. I'm just telling the people, like, this is one of the people I mentor, and I've helped them go to the next level. Okay? When you saw me on the Breakfast Club with Meta World Peace, and he gave me love for my financial advisory, and how much he's learned, and how much he didn't learn from other people that he learned from me. I don't know. You see, you people ask for testimonials, you get them, and then you complain. Man, maybe he told this one or that one to do that for. What I gotta tell millionaires to lie about me for? And I'm a humble guy, because I don't see people grow wealthy and then say, man, I need PC off of whatever you're doing. I just chill. And in fact, I'm waiting for Nate as well, so we can head out, because he's gonna roll with us to the basketball game as well. What time is it actually? Yeah, but why wouldn't you want to live better? People be trying to tell me all sorts of BS. As long as I'm around black people, I'm just happier than anywhere I could be. All right, you say that. I ain't gonna lie, you motherfucker. I ain't gonna lie. It ain't enough just to be around black folk. I gotta be around people who don't want to do craziness. You could say, you talk like all black people are crazy. I don't think all black people are crazy. My wife ain't crazy, and nor is my children. So why would you think I'm thinking that? I'm always talking based on the place I used to live. And I'm not going to live around a bunch of people my race who don't want to improve their community and then want to complain when people come in and improve their community and call it gentrification. How much damn barbershops do we need in one community and laundromats? You feel what I'm saying? Like, we couldn't create nothing else in there. That's because we don't have the knowledge to provide the services there. And that means the people that you're listening to don't encourage you to get the knowledge to provide the services there that are unique so you can stay in business no matter what. You know how many businesses are not in our community? But do they teach you how to get loans? Do they teach you how to borrow? Do they teach you how to borrow against insurance policies and which insurance policies you should use, like whole life insurance policies that you can, whole life insurance policy or group universal insurance policies that you can borrow against to purchase real estate so you can flip houses? Do they tell you how to investigate the tax equalization ratio of properties? Do they tell you how to study the comps? Do they tell you how to look for low crime rate, highly reputable school districts, single family households that heightens the probability of the property being sold? Single family households, highly reputable school districts, low crime rate, tax equalization ratios, comps, and purchasing properties by way of deed auctions and then soliciting the sale of those properties for about 20% below its fair market value. Do they tell you the distinction amongst assets value and market value? Do they tell you about tax liens and if no one redeems and how significant it is to make sure that you have a first priority lien holder position so you can opt out or opt in to the acquisition of the property? And should you opt into the acquisition of the property, first of all, you would have did your research on the lien already to know that it should be in a highly reputable school district, depending on the scenario, single family household. The comps are to your favor, the tax equalization ratio, and most importantly, if you got it through tax lien, then that means you are now empowered to sell it. That is the property I'm talking about. Sell it for 40% or even 50% below its fair market value, and sometimes even 60% below its fair market value. Or you can use empty lots as credit cards. You need to get the Penny Self-Millionaires book on IamBrotherPolIGHT.com. And you could turn around and say, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna purchase this tax deed because I'm gonna be buying the property for a price equal due and pass through delinquent property tax. And that contradicts the actual assets value of the property. And in turn, when I get this deed, I'm gonna get a HELOC or a home equity line of credit, a revolving line of credit. And what I'm gonna do with that is say this: I'm gonna purchase this property for $8,000 or $5,000. Let's say this: I'm gonna purchase this property for $5,000. It's gonna be worth $30,000, and I'm gonna get a HELOC. My credit is kind of good, so I'm probably gonna get 60% out of the equity. So I'm gonna get $18,000 from a $3,000 investment, revolving line of credit, and I'm gonna use that to purchase me, let's say, a franchise, a consumer-friendly franchise where they not only set it up, like let's say it's a clothing store for like 15 grand, where they set up the store for you, put the merch in there, train and hire your personnel all the way up into the management, and do your solicitations and conduct or deal with the marketing collateral all on your behalf for the first 3 months. Things are a lot more easier for people today. But you know what your leaders talk about? They be like, you know, all we gotta do is put our money together, you know, and support the mom and pop shops. And no, the mom and pop shops gotta set their game up, or they going to when it's time for gentrification. Y'all gotta learn. Stop this poverty conscious BS that they telling you, man. It's poverty consciousness. That's what it is. It's poverty consciousness. I'm not gonna lie to you. Them stores not really gonna survive. You can't have a community filled with stores that don't have the knowledge and contemporary disposition of businesses that are afloat in 2017. You can't do that and think you're gonna survive or succeed. It's real. I ain't gonna lie to you. It's so real. So don't let people fool you. Do not let them fool you. Peace. Live from the Mundrian, West Hollywood, Sunset Boulevard. Legend in the making. I want to make you legends too, man. Don't let them fool you. Get your bed, fam. Live better. Do for your family. Do for your children. And then let us successful Black people network. Let us network amongst each other, because we know what it was. We knew what it took to get here. Don't sit in a failing environment and realize nobody want to pool their funds. Nobody wants to get the necessary education that's requisite to the type of success that we're talking about. When we're talking about building schools, when we're talking about having our own banks, they think it's just all about trying to get a storefront, mom and pop shop, and let's make it happen. No, you need a whole lot more. You need a hold on. Yeah. Phone dying. Can't see nothing. That was a sign. See y'all later. Phone is dying. Peace. Love you all. Ilu. In our language, it means perpetual success. That's what I wish you all.